Up in the sky! It's a bird!
It's a plane!
It's
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephus and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. So how's everybody doing? Welcome to episode 20 of the Bitchspot Report. It seems like such a long time since we started this podcast, and while 20 episodes might seem like a lot, it's more than a lot of TV shows ever get. We have a long way to go. If I'm doing the math right, there's another 23 weeks left in 2013, and that means another 23 episodes, bringing our annual count for this year to 43 episodes. It's not bad, considering we only really started in March and took a couple weeks off. So how do you think things are going so far, Mike?
I'm having a blast. I think the podcast sounds great. I mean, that Mike guy, I'm kind of leery about, but everything else is great.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, there's some other podcasts that started about the same time we did, and I don't know if any of them are still around. 20 episodes might sound like a lot, but it's really not in the scheme of things. There's other podcasts I listen to that are like in the 300s, where they've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm going, wow, 300 episodes, that's a lot.
Yeah, coming up with the content, still being interesting, people wanting to listen. So, yeah, 20 is great. I mean, I'm at 22 on my A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy. I'm still at about 2,000 listeners for each episode, and I'm having a good time doing it, and people do appreciate it. If I wasn't getting any listeners and everybody was saying I ain't worth a shit, then I'd probably quit. So, and that hasn't happened yet, so I'm still on the air.
Yeah, as long as we keep having fun and people enjoy it, we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one thing I wanted to get to before we start, I received an email from a listener, and I wanted to address this on the air. I'm doing this for two reasons. First, because I'd rather say this once than a dozen times via email. And secondly, because I want to bring up a couple things about on-air questions. If anybody has a question and you want it answered on the air, please email us at report@jdragononline.com and specifically say you want it answered on air. If you don't tell me, I probably won't do it. This is kind of an exception. Secondly, please let me know how you want to be addressed on the air, or if you even want your name mentioned. I don't want to feel like I'm outing anybody if they're not an out atheist or anything. So if you want to be Joe from Michigan or whatever, that's fine. I'll do whatever you want. And if you don't tell me, I'm just not going to use any kind of a name whatsoever. There is no guarantee that we're going to read your question on the air. And maybe if we get enough questions, we'll start doing like an irregular segment of listener questions and listener feedback. Anyway, the listener asked about the Bitchspot Quickies, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a series of short videos that I started doing a while back, and I admit I haven't done any for a while. It's not that I don't want to, and I'm certainly not going to stop. In fact, I've got 3 in various states of writing and recording at the moment. It's just that these things take a long time to write, record, edit, and prepare for YouTube, and I often just don't have the time. I'm usually up against deadlines for blogs and other things, and those things come first because they're time sensitive. That said, over the last couple of days, I've gone completely crazy on both blogs and have written virtually all content that's going to be posted for the rest of the month. So I've got 12 to 15 posts done in the bag and scheduled for the rest of the month. That means I've got more time to spend on the quickies if I want to do that, and I'm probably going to. The other issue I have is that nobody's sending me topics that they want to cover. I'm not trying to duplicate content that I've done on the podcast or things I've done on the blog, although, I might do that if I think there's more to say about it. But otherwise, most of my best material is going here or to the blogs or whatever, and I'm just not getting any good suggestions for the quickies. Therefore, if anybody wants to see any more, let me know what you want to see. I don't want to just do video replies and other YouTube videos. I want them to be standalone pieces. If you have any good ideas, email them to me, and I'll try to use them, okay? How about you, Mike? You got any ideas for quickies?
Not at this time. I've been pretty much trying to stay organized.
Yeah.
I took a week off, and I did absolutely nothing except go through my books. I've got this book collection I've been trying to get access to. I've got them in boxes. I've got them all over the place, and every so often I need this book. So I rifled through the boxes. So I bought some bookshelves. So I'm trying to just trying to stay organized. So plus getting the research for my podcast and putting together stuff for this podcast. So it's my time's pretty wrapped up, just like you.
Yeah, I know, but everybody keeps going, well, would you do this? Would you do that? Would you do that? And okay, I'll give it a shot. You know, if people come up with ideas they want me to do. I've got a couple of them. I've got one on like William Lane Craig that I've had about 80% written and about 50% recorded for about 2 months. And I just have never had time to get back to it. And now probably in the next week or two, I'm going to try and get that one finished up. I'm going to get a couple others finished up. But it's really time consuming, you know, to do the YouTube videos where you're actually doing graphics instead of just putting up a picture and letting it run. You know, just kind of a video version like we do for the podcast. It takes hours and hours and hours. Like when I was doing the full out video version for the podcast, it would take about 6 to 7 hours to put that sucker together for an hour and a half podcast. That's a lot of goddamn time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to avoid video as much as possible, because I keep hearing it is time intensive.
Yeah, it is. And even for like the quickies that are 10 to 15 minutes long, I'm still going through 60 to 70 images that I have to find, download, edit, and then work into the video and get everything working together, doing all the transitions and doing all the other stuff. It's not difficult, but it just takes a lot of time. A 10-minute video probably takes 3 hours to prepare. Okay, I mean, I don't usually have 3 hours, but come on. I'm happy to do it if people want to see it. And they do tend to be pretty popular, but
cool.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to feel like I'm standing out here doing it all for myself. You know, if people want to see it, great. Send me some suggestions. I'll take on almost anything. I'm crazy.
Well, we're all crazy. I mean, I volunteered to do some training at work, try to train incoming designers and drafters on how to design and draft. I mean, I just started my outline for that, and I'm already up to like 11 lessons to put together. So I'm hoping I got time to do that, and I'm hoping to actually try to throw some of my podcasting and experience behind it too, and actually do them as maybe videos or something like that. It's mostly because in engineering, you know, people come and go all the time, so it might be even quicker to get people up to speed by, here, watch this video over lunch. This will explain some procedures we do. Yeah, that's what I propose to do. So, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I didn't just bite off more than I can handle, but I've got weekends and stuff like that. If I can keep from sleeping through them.
Yeah, who needs free time, right?
Right. You can sleep when you're dead, right?
Yeah. Well, see, on my blogs, I usually am written days or weeks ahead of time because I don't know why, but in the last year, I get really, really nervous if I don't have a good lead time on things where I'm going, oh my God, I have to have something written for tomorrow. What the hell am I going to do? So I get things written, you know, a week ahead of time or whatever, and then I don't get stressed. And over the weekend, I don't know what it was, but I decided I'm going to sit down and write. And I wrote like freaking crazy. And I wrote like 20 posts. And we're not talking short posts. We're talking 6, 7, 8,000 word posts on all kinds of stuff. Now I have nothing to do. So maybe I'll turn my attention to something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to the news. And now the news. Mormon Church to stop going door to door and will recruit online instead. Realizing that the world has changed, Mormon missionaries may do less door knocking in the future and may spend more time on Twitter and Facebook trying to win converts. They've started to realize that fewer and fewer people are willing to open their doors to strangers, but they're perfectly willing to open their email, Twitter, and Facebook accounts to any Tom, Dick, or Harry that comes along. Do you think that this is an improvement to the Mormon mission? I don't know.
I don't know either. I usually tune out advertisements and stuff like that. I mean, this is just one more thing to tune out. I mean...
Yeah. Well, I could see if it's people who are going over to Mormon.org or whatever and saying, I want to know more about Mormonism. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, if they're going to start spamming people, if they're going to start doing that kind of crap, it's just going to get filtered out for me. The one good thing about this is I don't have to worry about anybody coming to my door and knocking early in the morning on Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, not like I get any door knockers now because I'm on everybody's blacklist, but you know, that it's easy to get on people's blacklist. All you have to do is know more about their religion than they do and know how to counter anything they say. Their higher-ups don't want their young little converts in white shirts and ties coming into contact with people who know better than they do.
Yep. Yeah, I hardly get any, we get the Jehovah's Witnesses.
I get nobody.
But I think, since I'm traveling now, so at least, 2 weeks I'm away from home, and my brother won't answer the door unless he knows that the pizza guy's showing up. So it's more than likely, they got no response from the house, so they moved on. I haven't seen them in a couple of years, so,
I mean, it is fun inviting them in and then shredding their beliefs, but they don't like that. And, you know, I guess having this whole thing online, I guess it is a little bit safer for the Mormon missionaries who just get to ignore anything that tries to debate them.
Right.
You know, the second that you start arguing against their religion, all they have to do is block you.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way most theists online work anyway?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah. You disagree with them, and they'll call you a troll, or they'll just block you outright.
Well, I'm just wondering if I don't know how they're going to do it. If it's just going to be they're going to respond to people who actually want to hear about it, or if they're going to have some kind of a system where like higher members of the church can actually, watch what's going on, and then the second that anything goes wrong, they can just go, "Up, you can't see that anymore," and just cut it out. And I'm willing to bet that's kind of going to be what happens.
I think legally they can't spam you. I mean, technically, if you're on the no spam list or whatever, they can't do that. I'm imagining they'll probably do it through the phones, like a phone banks and stuff like that. Maybe hire somebody.
The problem is nobody pays any damn attention to the no spam list, the no call list, or anything else. I get constant robocalls, and I've been on the federal no call list since it started.
Yeah.
They don't care. Nobody cares.
Yeah, that's it.
And they're a religion, so they can probably get away with it because charities can still call you and can still contact you whether you tell them not to or not. Right. So I'm willing to bet they can get around any of that legally. But, it's great that I don't have any idiots at the doorstep. If I did, they don't wake me up. But it's no fun when the stupid people don't come to you and just beg to be taken apart.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of weird though, when I was a kid, one of the neighbors were Mormon. I want to say I didn't even know it until maybe about a year or so after they moved in. I mean, we were good friends. I mean, we hung out, and but they never tried to do any type of missionary work or anything like that. I mean, I don't know how they select people to bug. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know they do have a blacklist where, your house, they will never go to your house again if they've had a bad experience or whatever there. Right. But then again, I mean, the more that I think about it, I haven't had like any really bad experiences with door knockers for a very, very long time. Yeah. The last one I can remember was probably about 25 years ago, more than that now. I was like at my parents' house, and I was doing something out front with my dad, and this guy comes up and, he starts talking to me, and I said, I'm not interested. And so he starts trying to push tracts on me. I said, I'm not interested. Thank you. And so he wouldn't stop. So I took his tracts and I just ripped him up in front of him, and I threw him in the trash can. I said, do you not understand what not interested means? And he got pissed off at me because I threw away his tracts. Well, dumb shit. Think about it. I've never really had that problem I've been living in this house for 14 years now, and I've never really had that problem. The worst thing that's ever happened is I had a couple of ladies who barely spoke any English come to the door, and I kept saying no, and they just kept jabbering on in Spanish, and it's like, okay, just close the door.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had any real problems. I think one time, I want to say, this would have been in 79, 80-ish, and there was a guy, he was Pentecostal, and he was a holy roller. And I didn't know it, and we get talking, and he was one of these guys that would, when it was lunchtime and you'd go to the lunchroom, he'd be still sitting at his workstation, and he'd be reading, he had his Bible there, and he had his, little booklets, the tracts, And then I get back and say I had to sit across from him, and then next thing you know, I'm getting preached to, and I notice everybody around me laughing. And, I think later on he says, "Hey, Mike, we should have warned you about this guy, but we're glad he's picking on you because if he's picking on you, they're not picking on me." So I'm like, okay, I'm cool.
Entirely fine with them picking on me. Please bring it up, because that gives me license to go right after your ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people figure that out real quick.
Yeah.
Because I don't keep my mouth shut. All right, well, you want to jump to your first story?
Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles. The archdiocese change, but the overarching storyline doesn't. And last week, Milwaukee had a turn in the spotlight with the release of roughly 6,000 pages of records detailing decades of child sexual abuse by Roman Catholic priests there, a sweeping, searing encyclopedia of crime and insufficient punishment. Further into the story, the Milwaukee diocese started looking at ways of hiding their money. The documents show that in 2007, as the Milwaukee diocese grappled with sex abuse lawsuits and seemingly pondered bankruptcy, Dolan sought out and got permission from the Vatican to transfer $75 million into a trust for Catholic cemetery maintenance, where it might be better protected, as he wrote, from any legal claim and liability. When I saw that, there's a little backstory of mine. I won't go into the gory details of it. But seeing this, and I mean, they came clean, and now but they wanted to hide all their money so no one could take it. When the lawyers figure out, hey, there's $57 million there, let's take them to the cleaners type thing. I mean, that usually happens, but you know what? $57 million, you can't erase what these guys did. $57 million can go a little ways,
Yeah.
Kind of the side story. A number of these Catholic churches operated cemeteries, and the way I understand how cemeteries are supposed to operate, the way they should operate, is they set up a trust fund for perpetual maintenance. I mean, maintenance is already paid for these, or supposed to be paid for by whoever owns or operates the cemetery. And in Illinois, and especially Coal City, the Catholic cemeteries there haven't been maintained in 20, 30, 40 years. Well, when the guy told me about this, I go, that doesn't sound right. The churches should have set up this fund. And he goes, no, they asked for volunteers to cut the grass and all that kind of stuff. So it's like seeing this, there is a fund to maintain cemeteries, and then they want to put $57 million in it. I mean, like, does any of these guys think at all? I mean, is there any thought processes? Can these guys think?
Yeah.
I can't even think of anything what to think about this. I mean,
yeah, clearly these people just don't give a damn about the sexual abuse. They only care about protecting church assets and how many people they can get in the pews on Sunday to get more money. They don't give a crap about the people that are getting hurt.
Right.
I mean, Dolan is a massive con man, like Mahoney, in fact. They just want to make the church look good so that they can cover their own butts and keep making a lot of money. And, if somebody gets hurt, screw them.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. And what can you say more about it? I mean, you can't, that's it. I mean, we've gone over this before, it's so ingrained that the church is good and anyone who opposes the church are bad. But here you got churches abuse their parishioners, and they just keep going back for more. this particular diocese and any diocese that has this problem in it should file for bankruptcy. They should pay everyone off and just shut them down.
Well, they can't do that because then they wouldn't make any more money for the Vatican.
Yeah.
I seriously think that the IRS needs to go in and audit the books of every single Catholic diocese out there to find out where they're hiding all their money.
Or not even just the Catholic, all of them.
Well, yeah, but we'll start with the Catholics because we find case after case after case of them hiding money so that they don't get it taken away when these sex abuse scandals come down. And the Catholic Church acts like all these things, like LA where they had 20,000 pages of documents and Milwaukee where they've got 6,000 pages. They act like these are the oddballs. But I'm willing to bet you that every major city has these kind of documents that they're hiding.
Oh, guaranteed.
I mean, yeah. You'd have to go after them in a federal court to make, every Catholic church in the U.S. release all of their documents. I don't even know if it's possible. But that's really what we need to have happen is we need to have them come completely clean. And they'll never come clean voluntarily. They only release this stuff as a consequence of legal rulings.
Yeah.
They will never do it on their own. They'll never say, hey, we're not hiding anybody. We'll prove it to you. Never happens.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's I don't know why anybody's surprised anymore. This stuff comes out and, people like us just go, oh my God, look, it's happening again. Why are we surprised? This happens daily anymore. All the churches are corrupt and, we act like, well, holy shit. How should we know?
Yeah.
We have a lot of experience.
I've always been this one, innocent till proven guilty, all that kind of stuff. And I really wanted this to be, this whole scandal with the church to be just isolated. And then you have a few, copycats and, clinger honors type. And of course everyone says, oh yeah, there is a problem. We were fixing it. No, I mean, this has been going on since the 70s, 80s.
Earlier, 50s.
Well, when it began to start hitting the news, instead of being isolated in the particular diocese, the towns and that, it became more or less everyone in the country started hearing, pedophile priests. I mean, I'm going to say 70s and 80s when that really, it all came to a head. And we're still struggling with that almost 40, 50 years later. And it's not going away. It keeps coming back. There's always a new fresh batch of these priests, and the church doesn't want to deal with it. It's been the people who have been abused, who's had to fight their way through a court system that I'd like to think that they want to help, but you gotta have you gotta get the evidence. You gotta go through all the contortions of presenting a case that, yeah, this priest did this to me on this date. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy for anybody to start admitting, hey, this priest fondled me on this day, but it's taking these people to push through courts, through the local courts to get this to happen. And, and it's not going away. And I'm really now at a point like, close it all down.
Yeah, but you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back. Like I said, I just did a whole bunch of stories, but I just did a story about a Catholic priest in the 60s who murdered somebody. And he admitted that he murdered her, and the church protected him and moved him around and hid him, and all the people, the police captains and everything, they were all Catholic, and they said, we cannot prosecute any case against the church. So they let him go. For murder. And this guy is still out there. He's still in his 70s. He's still alive. And they still won't listen to the case. Even though they have eyewitnesses that say, yes, this guy admitted to me that he murdered this person in cold blood and threw her body in a canal. The police are still going, and this is in Texas, so if that tells you anything. But I mean, they're still going, nope, they're Catholics. We do not dare do anything against the church. It's no wonder this crap just keeps going on.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. If I put myself in, if I was the Pope or, somebody in charge, it's like, this isn't good for our cause. I've always, I like taking that position. I would even think that the people running the church says, hey, we've got a problem. We got to deal with this or we're going to lose. And they won't do it. All the rest of the good Catholics to say, hey, we've had enough. Our weekly tithing to the church, I don't want it going to pay off a priest and indiscretions. I want it to benefit the church. I want it to keep the doors open and help out, whatever charities that are involved. No, it's all, that money's going to end up paying off lawsuits, and you just have to draw the line. And if I was high up in the church hierarchy, I mean, it would be. That's it. It's over. We're going to turn the evidence over. You can either leave peacefully, accept your fate, or we're just going to fire you and you'll lose your pension, and then you'll have to deal with the law on your own, type of thing, so.
Yeah, but you have people like Dolan who are paying pedophile priests $20,000 to quietly get out of the church.
Right.
He won't turn them over to the cops. He'll pay them off to go away and stop causing problems for us.
Right.
That's the way the church operates.
Yeah.
And that's the way the church will always operate. And they are losing members left and right because people are getting sick of this, but they're not standing up and saying, you are going to change this church. They're saying, well, fuck the church. We're just going to stop being religious.
Right.
Which is a good thing, but, lots of people are getting hurt in the meantime.
Right.
All right. Did you want to go to the next story?
Let's go to the next story.
What would Jesus drive? Apparently, a Ford Focus. At least that's the car that Pope Francis has chosen to drive around within the walled Vatican complex. He's now encouraging other Catholic priests and officials to drive humble cars that show their new mission to focus on the needs of the poor. Francis, who is known for having chosen a much more austere lifestyle, even living in a small Vatican guest house instead of the lavish papal apartment, still sits on a massive fortune in cash, gold, and relics. Is this just a PR scheme? Or do we think he's really serious?
I vote PR.
I do too. We talked about this, I think the first week that you were on, where we were talking about, he got rid of the gold papal throne and the fact that he didn't sell it to do anything with it. He didn't sell off the gold throne and give the money to the poor. No, it went right back in the Vatican archives for the next time they want to roll it back out. They still own all this money. They still have, they're saying that the Vatican itself is worth between 10 and $15 billion, and its stock holdings are at nearly $2 billion, with any profits that they make automatically tax-free. When are they going to start spending any of this money on the poor? Or on anything?
Yeah.
It's just sitting in bank accounts, and he can be austere all he wants. He can run around in his underwear for all I care. He's not actually doing anything with any of the funds that the Vatican has.
Yeah. I mean, the art treasures, the buildings themselves.
We're talking just cash.
And then cold hard cash. I mean, you could move the entire third world into the Vatican and they could live high off the hog for the next, few hundred years, I mean, I can understand there's the historical, there's all the stuff over the thousands of years that they've been doing their Pope thing, and there's stuff with value in there. A millionaire can live off of $900,000 a year, or a guy that makes $1 million a year, he can easily still live at $900,000 a year. There's no difference there. The Vatican is 60 square miles, maybe. I don't know the exact numbers. I mean, it's a country unto itself, and $3 billion. I don't know what a country like. I don't know what the nearest small country might be. Like in Africa, might be in that $1 billion, couple $1 billion range. There's definitely something wrong there.
Yeah, it's just if you look at it now. I don't know exactly what it is for Francis, but for Benedict, he made about $200 million a year himself. That's not counting all the freebies and the perks and the free rent and all that other crap. That's cash money that this little cocksucker made. And here we have Francis making a big deal like, oh, I'm just living in a guest house because I don't want to live in this really posh apartment. Well, guess what? You guys are still paying for the upkeep of the apartment. You're not saving any money. In fact, you're spending more money because you're paying for not only the upkeep of the apartment, but you're paying for all the service to the guest house.
Right. And what is the guest house? It's probably about the same deal. I mean.
Oh, I'm sure it's not as golden and all that stuff, but still, who cares? Granted, it's usually only the nuns that take a vow of poverty, but you guys are acting like, well, we're doing things for the poor and we're doing all this stuff and, aren't we wonderful people? No, you're not. You're a bunch of rich assholes who are just stockpiling money and then talking about doing things for the poor, but not actually doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, $1 billion can go a long way in places like Africa and, Southeast Asia. I mean, just taking a third of what they've got could make a major difference in these countries.
Yeah, but the majority of things that they're doing isn't to make the lives of the poor better. It's most of their things are poured into like missionary work where they're just trying to convert the poor.
Right.
And anything they do, they run, soup kitchens and that kind of stuff. What is that? It's a loss leader for their conversion work. They're not actually doing it to make the poor better. They're doing it to make their coffers larger. They're doing it to make their numbers bigger.
Right.
They don't give a crap about the poor. And this whole thing, will everybody drive a Ford Focus? Well, how about you all just either don't buy new cars? Why don't you go buy a bunch of used cars? Why don't you go drive around in an old car that doesn't cost that much?
Right.
If you have to be telling your priests and your bishops and all that not to go out and buy a Ferrari, something tells me you're paying them too much.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting we keep coming up with these stories over and over. I mean, today about the Catholic Church hiding money and acting like they're trying to do things for the poor when they're not trying to do anything for the poor. They're just stockpiling money and, trying to be rich.
Right. Well, actually, now to think about it, I mean, there's no vested interest in helping the poor because it's the poor that are coming to the churches to basically to get saved, or maybe that's maybe the scam. Maybe the idea is take some of that money, build a church out in the middle of nowhere, bring the poor in, help them do whatever to convert them, then just kind of abandon them a little, at some point, because now that you got the converts, you got the numbers, you got the, maybe that's the idea, is that kind of suck the populace dry. Whatever little bit of money you give them, or whatever charity you give them, it comes back as the tithing to the church, and then boom, abandon them. We've got our numbers. They happily keep going back to church. They got the convert.
Right.
And,
and then
maybe that.
Yeah, then you've got the voting bloc that's going to go out and vote for the things the church wants in the first place.
Right.
That are going to go out and support all those political positions the church really wants to push through, but supposedly can't because of church-state separation.
Right.
I'm sure that has a little bit to do with it too.
Probably.
I don't know. I mean, the more we look at it, the worse the Catholic Church is looking.
Apparently in Bangladesh, it's going to be illegal to use religion as a political tool.
Yeah, we'll see how well that works.
Hopefully it'll work, because you can actually do jail time in Bangladesh if you try to use any type of religious advertising, I guess, or something like that, where if you try to press a religious agenda, you can go to jail for that.
Yeah, we'll see how well that works, because they've got a lot of Muslims out there just killing people in Bangladesh.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
All right, well, let's go ahead and finish out the news, and this one is yours.
Yes, this is from the Telegraph. Welby calls for church to join the sexual revolution. The Archbishop of Canterbury has warned the Church of England that it had to face up to a revolution in attitudes toward homosexuality. In his most widely anticipated address since taking over the leadership of the church, the Most Reverend Justin Welby insisted that it is now absurd and impossible to ignore an overwhelming change in social attitudes. in a deliberate echo of Harold Macmillan's 1950 speech, which he attacked apartheid in South Africa, the Archbishop warned the church leaders that they needed to reassess their own attitudes to gay people, even if they don't like it. So at least one church is kind of getting the idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about, people within the various churches kind of getting a clue and saying, hey, we have to change if we want to stay relevant.
Right.
I guess there are a few people out there who are recognizing that, you can't just oppose society and expect society to support you.
Right.
But,
that's what I liked about this article. I mean, it says to me things like a church can get it. I mean, they can get the idea that the world's changing around them. And if they want to stay relevant, they got to change with the times. They can't just bury their heads and say homosexuals are still bad, I mean, even the guy says, hey, you may not like it, but hey, this is the world. We need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Get into step. And because if they don't, they become irrelevant. I mean, to me, they're irrelevant, just by default, but for their people that still want to and still need to or whatever, they go to church, they're going to need to recognize that your demographic is changing. You're going to be losing people to atheism, agnosticism. You're going to be losing people to, if you're inflexible on race, feminism, homosexuality. If you're that inflexible, you're going to lose people. And apparently the Church of England is realizing that.
Well, one guy in the Church of England.
Yeah.
The church has not made any changes, and I kind of doubt that they're going to. But, we talked about this before, where it's really, really difficult for a religious organization to change its position on homosexuality. Because as far as they're concerned, they are not part of the world. They're part of God. And the Bible says God doesn't change his mind, although, granted, he does several times in the Bible. But right. Therefore, whatever position the church has, it's got to keep, no matter how unpopular it is, because that's God's position. And God hasn't shown up with a New Testament that says, oh yeah, I changed my mind. Gays are okay now.
Right. Of course, when, in that Bible, men were created in God's image. I mean, apparently that doesn't count, right?
Yeah, well, maybe God's bi. We don't know.
Who knows? But, no, it's just, you're right. The church, I guess, in a way, has to be inflexible, or they have to stand by their dogma.
Yeah, if they didn't stand by their dogma, it's not dogma.
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity to really see, because we're seeing more and more of this going on, where there are people coming out in the various churches, the various religions, saying, guys, the world is changing around us and we're going to get left behind. And I think this is really a good opportunity to see which churches really take their dogmas seriously and which ones are just, we're here to make money and we're really a religious business. We're not really a church. We're a business. We're here to get as many people as we can and take their money away.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of churches that are businesses. They change depending on how the wind blows. But there's also, for example, going back to the Catholics, there's an awful lot of Catholics who detest the changes that were made by Vatican II, and they still haven't forgiven the church for the past 50 years for making those changes.
Oh, yeah.
If you think these churches are just going to go, well, it's okay to be gay, do you think that these hardline Catholics are going to, go, well, it's okay because the church says it's okay? They're not going to do that.
Well, any hardline. I mean, the Baptists, the evangelists, those that are, they believe in Leviticus, that type of stuff.
Well, they don't believe in Leviticus. They pick and choose what they want to read out of Leviticus because they're not out there stoning children and not wearing mixed fabrics and all that.
Right. I mean, I just use that as the example, but those hardliners, they'll move, but maybe not because, having a Baptist move over to become Catholic when they've been, and pretty much any of the Protestants, they've been pretty much opposed to anything. I mean, Catholics have been, they've always been the bad guys, according to them, and, having to jump to Catholicism because it's the only church that still opposes gay marriage or whatever. I mean, I find that hard to believe that.
Yeah, but you're never going to get that. You're always going to have, the crazy Baptists and the fundamentalists. They're always going to oppose gay marriage. They're always going to be opposed to the gays, mostly because they probably have gay feelings of their own.
Right.
But I don't really see anybody moving to Catholicism, or very many people moving to Catholicism who didn't start out there. I see most Catholics moving away from Catholicism. Catholicism is probably the worst off, religious position out there right now. There's more people walking away from that than anything.
Right. If it ends up being the one church that still believes in, opposing gay marriage, opposing abortion, all that stuff. I mean, I wonder how many would make the leap from their fundamentalism into the Catholic Church, just because that's where they can still express their beliefs and stuff like that. I don't see it really happening because of the general animosity between the two groups. So
yeah,
it's hard to say who will do what. As other churches start. If they do decide to change or try to adapt to the current status quo, I guess, gays are okay, women are okay, that type of thing, and how people will react to, this church or this denomination has decided, we're going to allow female priests and we're going to marry gays and that kind of thing, and what's going to happen, what will be the fallout of that? I have no idea what could happen.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, I don't really see the real hardliners moving from one religion to the next, because you don't even have to be a part of a church to have a belief.
Right.
So
right.
the real hardline crazies, and I'm sure there's some really, really, really hardline crazies out there right now that aren't part of any kind of a organized religion or organized church. They're sitting in their bedroom clenching their Bibles going, I hate everybody, I hate everybody.
Right.
They don't have to be social about it. They just have to believe it.
Right, right.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch and see what happens. Maybe some of these churches will start to make the change, but I think the second that they do, they just expose themselves as not being all that serious about their beliefs anyway.
Right. But who's really, I mean, the Catholics have never been really serious about their beliefs, so.
Well, I'm sure that there are Catholics that are serious about their beliefs. I don't think that the church itself is all that serious about it. I think that they're just a criminal organization.
Well, yeah. Definitely.
But we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
All right. And on to the main event.
This is the main event.
There's this fun little bit in the opinion section of the Seattle Times, written by Leonard Pitts Jr., where he imagines a conversation with God while buying tickets to see Monsters University, the new film by Disney. At issue is the assertion that lots of atheists still pray and still engage in the trappings of religion while saying they're not religious. In the piece, God largely blows off the issue, saying people would do what people will do, and that might be true, but as atheists, especially those of us who are rational, skeptical atheists who have rejected religious belief for cause, should we not also reject the practices and rituals of religion as well? What do you think?
I will definitely agree. We shouldn't really be taking on the trappings. But you know what? I'm an old timer. I grew up, I use a lot of goddammits. Sometimes I'll say, oh, there must, this guy got fired. Oh, there must be a God. I'm that kind of, I still have reference God in my vocabulary, I guess.
Oh, sure. Lots of people do.
Yeah. So there's times, I wish this will happen. I wish this will happen. I mean, it's a prayer. I mean, I'm not praying to any particular God.
Well, you're not praying to any God because you don't believe any God exists. You're just using words that exist in the language that happen to mean something to some people, but that don't actually hold that meaning for you.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that's so to keep some of the trappings. I like some of the Christian Christmas symbols or Christmas, Easter, all that kind of stuff. I mean, cause this is stuff I grew up with. I was told Santa Claus was real and
Yeah, but Santa Claus isn't a Christian symbol. All the things that you like, I'm willing to bet, are not Christian.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is that, I was told, Santa Claus was real, the Easter Bunny was real, I was told all stuff was real, that God was real. It's all that kind of, that fantasy. And this is what and I'm just saying this is what I grew up with. So it's kind of hard to pull, I know that Santa Claus is not a Christian symbol. It's a marketing symbol from Coca-Cola. That's our modern day Santa was created by Coca-Cola bottling,
Right.
The trees, those were all pagan symbols, so, but it's that I grew up in that, where you can kind of believe in fantasy and I know a lot of parents are not really, they don't like lying to kids, telling them that there's a Santa Claus, there's an Easter Bunny, there's a great pumpkin, whatever the going mythical creatures. But for me, it was fun. And then when I learned that there was no Santa Claus, knowing that I have something on my brothers, I knew something my brothers didn't know, and I just want to, I wasn't going to say anything because they can, they would, perpetuate it,
Right. It's fun to have the secret.
Right. So, having that, and having those memories, these are great memories, and I don't feel like giving them up, and I don't, so having these, but still being an atheist is, it's all compatible to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's compatible.
Well, sure, because all those are secular symbols. The vast majority of people who celebrate Christmas and, all this other stuff, they're using secular symbols. Even the vast majority of religious people are celebrating a secular Christmas and a secular Easter and a secular everything.
Right.
There's very few people who are completely rejecting all the secular symbology and just using religion. So I don't think that's a big deal at all.
Right.
But the one thing he brought up was he was saying he knew atheists that were praying to a universal spirit. Have you ever heard of any atheist who prayed to a universal spirit?
Those are not atheists.
Well,
when I read this, it's like, this guy doesn't even know what an atheist is.
Yeah, well, I was being in Seattle, which is pretty much a separate planet, he might see that kind of stuff. But it's nothing that I've ever encountered, probably nothing you've ever encountered.
No.
I've never seen I've seen atheists who want to go to the atheist church, which I think is the stupidest damn idea ever. Or,
right.
Who want to get together with other atheists just because they're atheists. But I've never seen somebody who is going to pray or do any of this stuff. I guess, somebody who's into New Age and crystals and stuff, that's not really a religion. That's a bizarre philosophy because it doesn't believe in any gods. But, that's about as close as I could get.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, is he confusing agnostics who do kind of believe in a supreme being? They don't know if it's a god or not, but...
Well, no, those are deists.
Deists.
Agnostics are people, and I don't even want to get into the whole atheism, agnosticism thing, but, I think he's just an idiot, to be really honest.
Oh yeah, he has no clue to what he's talking about. He wants to label, he doesn't understand atheism, doesn't understand the deism, all the non-God based beliefs. And he just wants to group them all together, and he probably thinks that, a deist is, when they pray, that's as bad as, that's just as bad as the atheists, or whatever. He just doesn't have a clue to what means what.
Yeah, well, the stupid thing is deists don't pray because they think that there's an uncaring God out there who doesn't give a crap and won't help you anyway. So there's no point in praying to it. I'm looking at him like he probably thinks that anything that is not like a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew is an atheist. He does not understand the terminology.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping to get to, or get at, because he just doesn't understand. I don't know if this guy has any type of religious connection, but.
Oh, I'm sure he does. He's not going to be writing a thing talking to God if he doesn't have a religious connection.
I see nothing here to say that he's one thing or the other. I could write something like this, as an atheist. I mean, I could probably write the same thing. So I don't know what, I don't want to make the assumption that he has, if he's a particular religion, but he definitely doesn't understand what it is not to have or not to be part of a religion, or don't believe in any type of religion or God or anything like that.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. Although I do think that he doesn't make any good points, I think that there are good points we can draw from him. In that there's an awful lot of people out there who are trying to be social and identifying that social behavior with atheism. And saying that in order to be an atheist, you have to have all these other social beliefs, you have to do this, that, and the other, you have to think this, that, and the other. And that's just not true. And maybe that's where some of the confusion comes from. Yeah. I mean, people going, well, I'm going to go sit on a pew on Sunday morning. And he does bring up, atheists wanting to go to church on Sunday morning. Well, guys, why would you want to go sit in a church on a Sunday morning when you can just go out with a bunch of friends and have a good time? All these ridiculous rituals, all these ridiculous beliefs, all these holdovers from religion. Why would you want to maintain any of those things while you're an atheist? I mean, that kind of thing doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just going to say, like, the atheist church and the atheist political party and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with atheism. There is nothing atheist about any of these activities. In fact, there's no possible way to have an activity that has anything to do with atheism. That's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But people want to just go, I'm an atheist, stamp it on my forehead, and everything I do is therefore atheist because I'm an atheist, and these people are idiots.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've gone through this before. There's nothing wrong with it, like an atheist meetup at a bar somewhere and just to sit and shoot the shit, have a couple beers, and... Well,
I might disagree with you there.
I mean... Your atheist friends, let's put it that way.
Well,
not trying to say, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's when you try to create trappings of, to put up, let's buy this building, we'll, atheist church on it or atheist meetup place. That you're going beyond. I mean, just like between me and you, just sitting here talking, two atheists talking. That is, that's okay. When you start putting the trappings, you put the, you have a building, you build monuments, you have regular Friday meetings or, the atheist club come, that type of thing. Then you're starting to get away from what atheism's about.
Well, no. See, and here's where I disagree with you. If you were to go to an atheist meeting, why would you go to that meeting? Would it be to sit around and spend all of your time doing nothing but talking about not believing in God? Or would you be going because you had something else in common beyond atheism with the people who were there? And it's the same thing with having atheist friends. I don't have non-stamp collecting friends. Or I don't have non-hat wearing friends. Or whatever. I have friends that I actually have things in common with that goes above and beyond something that we just all share that we don't do. Non-mustache having friends. Well, you don't build a friendship on not having a mustache. You build it on something that you actually do have in common, not something that you don't do that you have in common. And so I don't see the point in going to an atheist meeting or an atheist church or an atheist meetup to do nothing but have nothing in common with anybody there except there's something that you don't do.
That's an interesting way of putting it. But when you separate out the meetup part, when you're talking about atheist meeting, atheist church, that, yeah, I agree with. But meetups, in a way, we as far as atheists goes, we share a common belief in the non-existence of God.
True.
So we do have that connection. So meeting up is not necessarily in a formal, I'm going to say and maybe informal might be still too formal, but it'd be like, hey, you go to an atheist forum and says, hey, I'm going to be at such and such place. If you're in town, come by, let's meet, have a few beers, a few laughs, throw some darts around. That is okay. But when you start, turning it into a lecture, or you turn it into some kind of more, I don't know, structured, more, just trying to think of good words. Then you start getting into what your point is that, now you're kind of you're getting away from what atheism's about.
Well, atheism's not actually about anything. That's the problem.
Well, atheism is something. It is about something. It's about not believe, we don't believe in God. I see your point. I'm wondering if you can see my point that, not believing in something is believing in something. I'm believing that. Is that making sense?
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. All right. I can understand your whole meetup thing where, hey, if anybody wants to come by, we'll have a good time. We'll do things, we'll drink beer and throw darts or whatever. But what kind of a basis is that for an ongoing friendship? I mean, if you're going to turn around and say, hey, I went and I met somebody who happened to be an atheist and we did whatever we did, and we talked about not believing in God. I mean, how many times are you going to go back to meet that same person over and over and over again if the two of you have absolutely nothing in common other than not believing in God? I don't know about you, but when I get together with my friends, I don't talk about atheism. I have no point. There's no reason to talk about atheism,
Right.
If religion went away tomorrow, I would never talk about atheism again. I talk about atheism in response to theists. I don't do it because it's a thing in and of itself. I do it because there's a bunch of idiots out there who believe in imaginary friends in the sky.
Yeah.
I have no friends with whom I have nothing positive in common.
Yes, I'm struggling with your point. I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's something missing. There's just something missing there. And I'm trying to, because, we connect with people, we find stuff in common. And, atheism is something that we're in common with. We haven't met in person. You are just a voice in my headphone or on my iPod when I listen to the show. Imagine if we did, if I end up in California or you end up here in Detroit, we can meet up and, heck, maybe even do a live show if we were brave enough. But, we could, we have a connection, and maybe we could build a bigger connection, just by getting together. We don't have to be there because it's an atheism per se. It's like,
yeah, I think you can use atheism as a means to get together. But to forge an actual connection, that requires something more. I couldn't imagine just going, hey, I want to hang out with that person, even though I have nothing positive in common with them except not collecting beer bottle caps. There's not enough there to actually make for a decent friendship. There's just not enough there, and you're going to real quick run out of things to talk about except laughing about the stupid things theists do. And then, it's just going to go separate ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree with that. It's just that I think you're cutting out a part. I imagine our listeners who are atheists they got a connection with us. They wouldn't be listening to us if they didn't have some type of connection. So there's something started. Nothing may ever happen of it. I meet you in California. We have a few drinks, we say, hey, cool, you got your thing to do, I got my thing to do. So we don't connect any more than just our relationship here on the podcast. And that's fine. I am looking at, like-minded people getting together, and if it clicks, it clicks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No sweat. It's just that when you start adding more on top of that, when you trying to turn it political, trying to turn it into, a club, then you're out, you've lost it. You're getting out of that realm. I mean, I think as an individual, we can, as individuals who are like-minded, yeah, we will get together, we get together, we may not like each other when we meet each other or something like that. That's fine. That's life. That's human interaction. But when you start talking about then trying to say, well, let's have a regular meeting and we do let's bash the theist, sessions and, then I agree with what you're saying is that, that's beyond. But I think there's, I still want to think that this just person to person type, relationships that could come out of having that common, we don't believe in God.
Yeah, I just don't see that as being enough to make that kind of a relationship work.
It's a starter.
It's a start. It's an icebreaker. You're right. But to go beyond an icebreaker, you have to find some kind of something that you both enjoy together. Not, well, we have nothing in common. We don't like anything else except for atheism. There's nothing there.
Right. But that's as far, then that's as far as it goes. I mean, and you just walk away when you try to build on that in other ways. I mean, because you're talking about, or at least unless I'm screwing up here. I mean, you're talking about adding the, extra trappings of, having 6 o'clock meet at here. We're going to have an atheist club meeting. We're going to, speak to, whatever.
Well, no, I'm not even saying that. I'm not even bringing up meetups. Let's just say, we have a bunch of people who are getting together at a certain place. There's not going to be any lectures because going to a lecture is a completely different thing. There's just a bunch of people who are going to meet in a certain place. And those people are all going to get together, and the only thing that these people know that they have in common is that they don't believe in gods. The people who are going to keep coming back to this time after time after time are the people who are going to make other positive connections to the people who are there. Maybe they all like the same kind of movies. Maybe they like the same kind of music. Maybe they like to drink the same kind of beer. I don't know. But they're all going to come back together, not because they don't believe in gods, but they're going to come back because they have those positive connections.
Right.
And unfortunately, like you were saying before, when people want to add on new things, politics, all this other nonsense to atheism, you're not talking about atheism anymore.
Right.
Because atheism is not a thing. If you start adding politics to atheism, you're talking about politics now. You're not talking about atheism. So there is no atheist party because atheism isn't a political thing. It's not a religious thing. It's not an anything. It's a complete nothing.
Yeah. It shouldn't be. But, there's P.Z. Myers who wants to turn it into something.
Yeah, but he's a dumbass.
I know. I mean, I'm just pointing that out. You're right. There's nothing political to this. There's nothing religious to being an atheist.
Atheism has nothing to do with social justice. They're trying to turn a non-thing into a thing, and it's not a thing.
Right. That I agree with, because it's not, it's not a thing.
Yeah, but there's a lot of atheists out there who just don't understand that it's not a thing. It's nothing you can build a thing on.
Yeah.
It's like the classic non-stamp collector thing. There's not a thing there. You cannot build anything on not being a stamp collector. Because as soon as you start talking about anything else but not being a stamp collector, you're not talking about that anymore. You're now talking about something else. I don't get people who do that and who can't see how that's different. And there's unfortunately a lot of people in the quote-unquote atheist community who really don't understand that.
That's a show unto itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to start digging it, but it definitely trying to make atheism something that it isn't. I've actually tried to figure out why isn't it that atheists can't come together to at least become a political force. And it just can't. Besides the fact that it's such an individual thing. you're never going to get any large number to, buy into it or to become a political, bloc, I guess, if it's a good term.
And that goes right back to what I was saying, is we all have one thing in common, and that's not believing in gods. Beyond that, we represent just a massive varying degree of political, social, and economic beliefs. We don't have anything inherently in common outside of not believing in gods.
Right.
If we want to come up with something, there's a lot of people, a lot of atheists who support separation of church and state. And so when you go out and you start talking about separation of church and state, you'll get a lot of support. But you're not talking about atheism at that point. You're talking about separation of church and state. And you'll actually find a lot of theists who will come out in support of that, and they'll be on our side because we're no longer being atheists. We're being responsible people, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. But I've been running this thought experiment through my head on and off. Why is it that skeptics, atheists, any of those, rationalists, humanists, whatever terms they pin on themselves, why can't we get together to be a political force, to be a, whatever, to be something, to be an organization to, be an NRA, but we're opposed to religion being taught in schools, creationism, and whatever,
Well, but we have that.
I've been going through this, and I still haven't figured it out. I mean, honestly, these will be subjects that, we're all interested in to see happen. We want creationism out of schools, not being taught as science. We want it taught, if we were willing to allow it to be taught like as in some type of history or, sociology or something like that. But we don't teach it as, we don't want it taught as science. That is something, that in my personal beliefs is that, we need to get creationism out and intelligent design out of our schools. And so why can't more people pull together to fight this? And it's what you're saying. It's not that we, now I'm kind of messing up here, but,
yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand exactly what you're saying. All right. Problem is, number one, there are organizations out there like American Atheists and CFI and all the rest of that do these things.
Right.
And anybody who is interested in doing these things that these groups support can go join these groups. But the problem is that there is nothing that atheists, as a result of being atheists, support universally, including getting creationism out of schools, including separation of church and state, including anything. You've got accommodationists all over the place who have no problem catering to the religious and all this other stuff just to shut them up. There is nothing that atheists, by being atheists, support universally. We're just all, we are defined by what we're not. We're not defined by what we are. And we can't be defined by what we are because we as a group are nothing. It's the whole herding cats thing. There's nothing that we all share in common except something we don't do.
Right. But I would, but there's like a part of me that keeps wanting to say, well, do you know what? But this is, there are things that we need to do. We can't get it together. And, that's the frustrating part about this question is, yes, and you're absolutely right. It's, we are dealing with, different mindsets, different, people with different agendas, different ideas, different, whatever. Trying to bring something like that together it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's something major, like something like, I don't know, an Adolf Hitler coming into the White House. I know some people might agree that we do have an Adolf Hitler in the office, but no, if something like really bad happened like that, then
yeah, you still wouldn't get universal support.
True.
Well,
true. But you'll get I'm just trying to come up with some way to, something big's got to have to happen to get people to say, to put down their petty bullshit and say, hey, this is the course we need to be taking. This is the course. It's a non-thing. We're just going to be going in our own little directions. Nothing will ever come to it. And you're in, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's
but
what we're dealing with.
If you really think about it, isn't what you're saying exactly what Atheism Plus tried to do? They tried to say all atheists should follow these social clauses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do not follow the social clauses that we want you to follow, you're not an atheist. And look how well that turned out.
Well, it didn't.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at a political party, you got, like in the Republicans, you got the hardcore fundamentalists, but then you still have some people floating around in there. They're somewhat conservative. Because I vote Republican. I'll admit that, and I do that mainly because of, not necessarily because of the wacko stuff. Mostly it's my locals the local Republicans, the local elections, local districts that have done real good work and really has been very good at keeping spending down. We get good services. We don't. My taxes go down every year is in the village and other than the schools, my taxes go down every year. Where else in the country can say that,
I can't. I wish I could.
Yeah. So,
but here it doesn't matter if there's a Democrat or a Republican in power. It's going to go up no matter what.
Right. Other than schools, they go crazy. My districts are primarily Republicans, so it's like, okay, there are fiscally responsible Republicans out there.
Not many.
Not many. Apparently they all live in Shorewood, Illinois. So I'm happy, but I'm not too thrilled with, with what they're doing in Texas and what they've done all over, just the retarded stuff that's come out of these guys' mouths. But having that range of people within a party, this is something, that doesn't work. But if there was such thing as an atheist party.
They're trying.
I know they're trying, but if it was something that could be where you could have the full range of atheists, maybe you could get it to work. But, when you got guys, well, like what you're saying with Atheism Plus, you believe this or you don't belong. That's not the way you organize. That's not the way you organize people. You bring in everyone of like-minded, and you accept. You have to accept that. Yeah, you're going to have the nut jobs, and you're going to have the sensible ones, and you hope that the sensible ones win out over the nut jobs. And unfortunately, that rarely happens. But it does. It could. But when you're kind of forcing, this is what you're going to believe in if you're going to be an Atheism Plus. That kills it right from the beginning. So
yeah, but looking at the atheist party, I would never vote for anyone just because they were an atheist, because being an atheist means nothing politically.
Right.
I would never vote for any of the candidates that are probably going to come out of the atheist party, because 99.99% of them are going to be ridiculous liberals, and I'm not going to vote for those idiots.
Right.
So I don't give a crap if they're an atheist or not. Atheism isn't a thing. I care about what they're actually going to do in office, not what they're not going to do, which is not believe in a God. I'd be happy to vote for the most crazy Christian out there if they kept their religious views completely out of their politics, and their politics were something I could support. What they believe on a Sunday, I don't give a crap.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what I'm trying to, I was hoping to get across, is that I called it an atheist party because, it's to welcome atheists, whatever I wasn't using it as like this is just a party for atheists. Anybody can join, whatever. But anyhow, yeah, and be able to make this, making decisions. Yeah, I wouldn't vote for somebody who's a total nut job. I don't care if he's an atheist or not. As long as I'm comfortable enough with the guy knowing, or woman, I shouldn't, but whoever's running, I don't care what he is, white, black, whatever. I don't care what they are. I just want them to be doing the job that I'm sending them to Washington or to Springfield, Illinois, or to Joliet, whatever district I'm voting in. I want those guys going into those jobs doing what I voted them in for.
Right. Yeah, what their religious views, As long as those religious views do not impact their political positions, I could care less. I would rather not even know, because I'd rather not have religion even be a thing when it comes to politics.
Right.
We've done this one to death, I think.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up for the week. Well, that's 20 in the can and more on the way. I bet people who thought we'd never survive are kicking themselves now. Please let everyone you know, including strangers on the street, so we can continue to grow. Thank you once again for listening. We'll be back in another week with another show, and we'll see you then. You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report Podcast with your hosts, Cephus and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Bitchspot Report. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.